I've got one rule when I sit at the table, and this is my one rule. Only 6 months ago, Tribit, they sent me a speaker. The clue is, this is the speaker they sent me. You've probably heard of it because it's called the Tribit Stormbox Lava. It came out in March, and that's about 5 or 6 months ago. They said, Al, and I said, what? And they said, Al, tell us what you think. We really like the feedback you give. And, and can you do it, I think, within 10 days they wanted the video. And I said, by the way, I don't really like the sound of this speaker. Oh, spoiler alert right at the beginning. You don't normally do that. You make us wait 50 minutes. I'm out of training. Okay, what did I say? Oh, yeah, I didn't really like it. And I said, I'm not sure about making the video because I was having a big break. I wasn't playing snooker. Boom, boom. Right, yeah, and then I never did it. And why didn't you do it, Al? I've heard all sorts of stories. You could have just asked me, and some of them are quite horrific, the stories that you thought were going on. I did do a live stream, and I told you, I openly said, I've had a midlife crisis, and it's not over yet. But, however, for certain reasons, I thought, do you know what, I need to come back. Why? Because you think I'm the anti-shill. I don't want to be the anti-shill.
The anti-shill?
But, oh my God, it's really bad out there. So, right, the Tribit Stormbox Lava. Yes, remember those 5 minutes preambles and you keep complaining. We're going to keep doing that. By the way, the Tribit Stormbox Lava, turn it on, just show it's not a dummy speaker, it's a real speaker. It comes with this little ropey. I know you've already seen all the reviews, just in case. It could be out for 3 years and people will still be coming in. Actually, I'm still surprised, even though I disappeared, old videos people are still watching and quite liking, obviously seeing them for the first time. That's the speaker, any colour you want, as long as it's black. This is quite nice. It's not elasticy, but it is a ropey kind of thing, and it's on with clips, blah, blah, blah. None of this really matters. We just know what it's going to sound like. I already told you I didn't like it, but by the way, when I told them I didn't like it, they said, well, hang on a second, we're going to do another firmware. But I've updated it since then, and I can't say it's really changed that much. So you got the long strap if you want. Got a USB thing, USB-A to USB-C, which, because on the back, well, I'm just thinking, is that for the input-output? So you can, yeah, that's for the, you see, that's why I'm confused. That's a bit old-fashioned, isn't it, really, if it's something that came out in March, because it's the output. If you want to use this as a power bank, you can, and that's USB-A. But charging is USB-C, so you really want USB-C. USB-C, yeah, USB-C on both ends, and it's not. That's by the way, just to show you, it's got an auxiliary input. Boom, boom. Now that all the phones are losing their auxiliary inputs, because it's not many speakers come with the auxiliary input these days. This one certainly does. And we're off. Right, just to tell you what the headlines were. Oh, by the way, when you go on Amazon, Amazon being the Amazon that they are now, the main thing they want to tell you is frequently returned item. Woo! What's that all about? I did tell them right at the beginning, but I didn't take any notice. Yeah, I've got to say, Tribit, not the Tribit of old, Tribit, I still don't know. It's not one of old because there's lots of, there's no money out there. No money out there, so obviously, look at Soundcore. Another week, another speaker. That's how they make the money now. Market, check it out. Pay money to lots of all these shills. They'll say whatever you want. I won't name him, but it was really disappointing when I just saw. Yeah, I won't name him because he doesn't deserve it. I've defended him so many times, but to say there's Soundcore got a speaker with the drivers up, that floats and it's marketed as floating, that's good, why not? But he said it's the first one ever that floats with the drivers up. Spoiler alert, it's not. And he also said it's doing that is exclusive to Soundcore. The money that's going in his pocket for saying that, and he kept a straight face. I've got to give it to him. He kept a straight face when he said that. Boom, boom. Right, the headlines. Get into the sound. I could do the sound clips now. I'm just thinking, shall I change? No, I'll make you wait. Well, you're skipping through it anyway, but there's 14 of you that quite like my videos, and apparently, so just for you, 14. Right, 80 watts of booming sound. It doesn't say RMS or anything else. And watts is not all that. Yes, it's a clue that it's going to go a bit louder, but it's not really all that. And they fix what they say anyway. And is it the amp? We don't even know because they're saying woofers. Oh, if you didn't know, woofer, woofer, tweeter, tweeter. The problem, but they're actually. You know what? I thought when I sit down, I'll take the cover off. Should I do it now? I'll take the cover off just to show you how. Well, no, because it doesn't actually flip over nicely. But you gonna do it? What are you gonna do? You're gonna look. Let's have a look. How long? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. See, it doesn't sit right if you do that. But I'm gonna show you. It's pretty cramped. A little bit further apart, like on the JBL Extreme 4, which is obviously what they have taken aim at. It's a little bit further apart, but yeah, very cramped. A little bit of water, because I did a float test. And do you know what this does? And this, I'm not going to say his name, but Soundcore, who are telling their shills to say nobody else has ever done that before. This speaker floats, but it doesn't drive. No, it doesn't. Just remembered the specs. It floats, but not with the drivers up. But yeah, it's still got wet. Cut that out in the edit. Boom, boom. That's what she said. Could be. So yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. I never did. Right, that's how cramped they are. Right, get back to where we were. Yeah, the headlines. 80 watts booming. Right, so what was I saying? Oh yes, it's because. So they're saying, oh, our woofers are 30 watts and our tweeters are 10 watts each. I think they said. So it adds up to 80. 60. Yeah, 10 watts. Or was it? Something like that. The point is, you know, that's not 80 watts from the amp, is it? And they say delivers clear, distortion-free audio with deep bass, balanced mids, and crisp highs. Spoiler alert, no, 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 no. It doesn't. Detachable, we told you that. So it's got 24-hour playtime, but they do say that's at 50% volume with the X bass off. Still 24 hours if it did it that way. And you don't want any bass. Actually, it doesn't reduce bass that much, to be honest. As featured in, this was quite funny. This is what they're using in the marketing now. As featured in, because I didn't do the video, as featured in Digital Spy's 2025 portable Bluetooth speaker roundup. Recognize, this is what Digital Spy apparently said, and this is what they're going with in the headlines. Recognised for its balanced sound. It's recognised. Do you recognise your speaker, mate? You didn't recognise it? This is the one with the balanced sound. 24-hour battery and IP67 durability. Yes, it's IP67. 6 is the dustproof and 7 is waterproof. Up to 1 metre water, 30 minutes. And I actually had to go on Digital Spy to see how they could get things that muddled up. Well, Digital Spy says, at £129, the speaker is quite expensive. No, it's not a lot of money for a Bluetooth speaker, actually. And actually, it's not £129 right now. I could get this today for £100, which is even less expensive. Right, but it feels sturdy. It feels sturdy and provides good sound. They're going into amazing detail. Digital Spy, they know their stuff, and they say it provides good sound. And they also happen to say, we didn't notice much difference between the preset audio book and the music settings. And I would say, did you turn the speaker on? That is extraordinary. It was so extraordinary, I had to look up who said it. And it turned out to be Andrea Tonks. Well, Andrea Tonks is the audio expert. Oh no, she's not the audio expert. She's the deputy picture editor in entertainment. Well, I would never have known that. 20 years experience working in print and digital media. I would say go and buy more Bluetooth speakers. But hey ho, it works in the marketing, doesn't it? Well, that was that entertainment. What else we got? I can tell you what else I've got written down here. Just to say, it's about 100 quid today as I sit down here on Amazon in the UK, and it's about $130. Where? Because more than one country has dollars. Well, it's in America. And I just check it off of Amazon. Not special deals or anything like that. By the way, it's got multi-point support. Has it? Yeah. But for me, I found, except for one time, I had to pause on one device to start. I don't know if it's got 3 hours of lag or something. Because one time, I went to the second device and it did take it over. But all the other times, I had to pause on one before the other one would take it over. It's got 43.2 watt-hour battery, which is about what you'd expect for this size speaker. AAC, SBC codecs, Bluetooth 5.4. This is the deal breaker for me, guys. When I found out the party mode, you can hook up 160 of these. All I need is another 159 of these, and that would be absolutely pointless. But you can do 2 in stereo mode. It's got the USB-C input, but the output is USB-C, USB-A. It's got an auxiliary input. I have to edit this out because on here I've put it doesn't have an auxiliary input, I don't know why, but it does have an auxiliary input, although most of you now have phones that do not have auxiliary input. So it outputs as a power bank 5 volts, 2 amps. What's that out on it is 10 watts. You can use it as a phone. Woo! And of course, if I was Flossie Carter, I'd be making phone calls with it right now, but I don't see the point because I just want to know what it sounds like. Well, why are you taking 20 minutes and all it? It's what I do, innit? It's what I do. Why would I spend, I spend about 5 days putting all this info together, so therefore, why wouldn't I tell you? It's got no lights. It's got no lights and it only comes in black. If they're only going to do one colour, at least make it fluorescent. It is quite boring, but it just seems to be some of their colours now and stuff. But anyway, yeah, so it's not that heavy. I've heard some people say it's really heavy. Well, it's very heavy for a teaspoon, but it's not that heavy for a big speaker. It's 2,369 grams. It floats, but not with the drivers up. But there are other speakers outside of Soundcore. I said that. We'll do that in a minute. Just to tell you, 65. I measured them. Yeah, I did. 65mm woofers, 20mm tweeters, 2 passive radiators. Boom, boom. 128 milliseconds AAC, 144 milliseconds. I found on my S25 Plus. I found it's for most people, but probably just about usable. But for me, I can see the lip sync. I always said my cutoff point happens to be 80 milliseconds. As I said to my barber. Right. Yeah, and it's got a £10. £10. It's got a 10-band thing in the app. Talking of the app, is that what you said? Is the app? You do get an app. It's pretty similar to the W King app. You get options for EQ. You can set up a custom EQ and save multiple custom EQs. It's a 10-band graphic equalizer. The presets are the usual: X bass off, X bass on. Tradition, no idea why it's called Tradition. Audiobook, classical, rock, jazz. In terms of settings, if your firmware is there, you can set your EQ button to be a custom EQ, one of the other presets, but by default it will be X bass lights on the speaker. Means, as you can see, it's going to be X bass mode. When the lights off, it's X bass off, but you can change those. You can turn on a countdown to the shutdown, and you can turn off the voice prompt. Indeed, you can turn off auto shutdown altogether, and you can do your firmware upgrades via the app. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think originally it used to be called Traditional. Now I don't know if it's a spelling mistake or not. They called it Tradition. Boom, boom. Why is it a tradition? I mean, originally it was when I complained about the Mac, when the X Sound Go, which is really the Mac Sound Plus 2, came out, and it sounded nothing like it. And that was the whole point. Max, why we like the Mac Sound, because it had a neutral sound, and whoever's tuning them now, I don't know. I think they use one just bass heavy track, and they don't know how to tune it. Well, they probably do because they said it. But then again, Amazon says they're getting lots of returns. I did tell them that right at the beginning, so maybe I wasn't so far out as they thought I may have been. A quick look at the frequency response. X bass on, volume steps reasonably linear, mids and upwards. It's a slight upwards tilt, so slightly on the bright side, but quite wavy. Upper bass, big scoop out in upper bass. And it's all about the 55 hertz peak. 60% and above, massive bass roll-off. You can see at 60%, that 55 hertz peak is still well above the rest of the track. But by 80%, it's below the rest of the track. And at 100%, it's a big roll-off, about 300 hertz and down. X bass off. Still got that big bass peak. It's just not as much as X bass on. We also have a bit more in the mids when you turn off the bass boost. And weirdly, a bit less in the highs. I say weirdly because less in the highs is going to make the bass sound a bit fuller than it is. So-called traditional is a case of WTF. What is this? It's kind of Pamela Anderson laying down. I don't know why they call this traditional. If we overlay everything, you can see there's a volume mismatch between X bass on and X bass off. If we adjust for that volume to see what's really going on, we see X bass on is not just the bass. It's not a massive bass boost, to be fair, but it is a bass boost, but it's also more V-shaped. So a bit less in the mids and a bit more in both the
highs and the bass. And just to lay traditional on top of those two, I don't know. I don't know why this is traditional or what on earth they're doing. And the weird thing is, it's going to have the biggest bass at maximum volume because they've reduced mids and most of the highs to get a bit more in the bass. But it's not bass mode, it's traditional mode. So you could say traditionally confusing. In terms of the drivers, yeah, the passive radiator, right bang on the 50 hertz mark where all their eggs are in that one basket. The tweeter is not very smooth. It's a bit wavy. Well, very wavy. I don't know what's going on really. And crossover about 3.5, 4 kilohertz. There's actually a dip at 3.5 kilohertz.
Yeah, I don't know why it's tuned like that. It's weird. It's really, really weird. There's headroom on there they haven't used. That's clear. So they think they're being clever. They've gone for that 50 hertz area. They want to give you that. It's fine if the track's got it. If it hasn't got it, then it's pointless. Why is it pointless? Because they've taken away the upper bass.
You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
So it's like one notey bass, and if it works, it works. Then it's more at low volume. By the time you're over 50%, you're losing that bass heavy sound anyway. And then you've got a bit of a peak in the mids and the trebles. It's not good, is it? It's not good. To me, a lot of people like it, and I've seen a lot of people who don't like it. So I don't know. They must know how these things sell. I mean, why do that? But why call that traditional? As I said, oh yeah, I was saying, because I said, why don't you realise why people bought the Max Sound Plus? And then they said, oh, we'll have a traditional EQ. Or a neutral EQ. They called it traditional for some reason, and it wasn't even like the Max Sound Plus, and it's not flat. I honestly don't know what they're doing. And those two peaks in the upper bass. So the bass is there. They put back the upper bass, and they've still got as much bass as you've got in the X bass mode, and it skips a little bit in the mids, don't they? And they've boosted the highs. The headroom is there to have a more neutral sound. It's all a bit weird. X bass off, X bass on. So you take off the bass boost, which they claim is something magical, X bass, but obviously it's just EQ. So they take off the bass. You got a little bit less bass, but then they reduce the treble. The opposite of what you'd expect them to do if you want a less bass heavy sound. I don't know. I don't know what's happened to Tribit. They've really seemed to lost the way, or you know, profit margins aren't there, and they're just going for the like Soundcore doing. But Soundcore, you know, I can't say, apart from the X600, I can't say they're awful. They're probably at decent value. It's just that their older speakers were better value. I was going to do a low volume, high volume test. Do you know what happened? I messed up my recordings in the low volume, and I couldn't be bothered to do it again because I'm just trying to get back into things and try and see how can I speed. I clearly can't speed up. You can see I'm struggling just to talk. I sit down here with everything in my head, and by the time I've sat down here, I can't get it out of my head. Will I get too much? I don't know. I'm waffling again, and that's good. As long as that 14 of you are still happy, that's fine. I'm never going to be mainstream. That's clear, isn't it? I'm never going to be a mainstream reviewer with millions and millions of views. And are you moaning now? No, I'm just going to get back. So, yeah, I'm just going to do 60%. Do you know why 60% on this speaker? Because that's about real world volumes for me. Just know, that's at the point it starts limiting its bass. It's going to sound more bass heavy at low volumes. That's what people seem to like. It's going to sound warmer, but muffled, and it's sort of volumes. Why buy that in the first place? If a speaker, are you just going to play that speaker? Good point. As I said, I've not been in practice, so I'm going to compare it to some other speakers. I'm going to compare it to the JBL Extreme 4. Well, who would have thought it? Doesn't look anything like the JBL Extreme 4, does it? Oh, hang on a second. I think that's what they're taking aim at. Half the price. Is it half the price? I'll tell you in a minute when I look at. Yeah, as I sat down here today, the JBL Extreme 4, 240 quid. $380 compared to 100. Yeah, it's about half the price, isn't it? Less than half the price. Well, if it gets anywhere near it, can't really argue. But do you know what? Not going to compare it to one speaker. I'm going to compare it to the Soundcore Boom 2. Why are you doing that? Well, it seemed a good idea at the time. It's kind of that kind of size, and it's actually a little bit cheaper. The Boom 2 was never really the motion boom. They never really, even the new ones, the second generation motion booms don't sound like the original motion booms. I don't know. It's all about marketing now. But you can see what I'm saying. If we're looking for value, basement is about the same. If you put it in the luggage, it's about the same. And I can't go over all the specs. We'll do it at the end, maybe, I don't know. At the end of my career. Do you know what? Not one, not two, but he wasn't expecting that, was you? And neither was I. I wasn't expecting the Spanish Inquisition. Well, who was? So, unless you're in Spain, right? It's the U-Boom X, if you didn't know. It's the U-Boom X. What you doing now? This is the, if any speaker's broken me, it's the U-Booms, because there's a certain crowd that, but they're still haunting me. They're still haunting me on here, still haunting me on Reddit. It's unbelievable. However, I will say that if you're buying a speaker like that, and you're looking for something that's bass heavy and you're taking on, this is massively heavier, by the way. So basically 2.3 kilos, not massively heavy, it's quite heavier, just over 4 kilos. It's a lot heavier. It's quite a bit bigger. However, in terms of price, it's almost the same. £120, $130. In dollars, it's exactly the same. So before you scream at me, scream and shout and do all those things, it's a song, isn't it? Scream and shout and all things like that. Sugar and spice and something like that. Yeah, so the U-Boom X. So for reference, and because I didn't do the low volume test, which is pointless, just know it's going to, when you hear it at 60%, it's going to sound a lot warmer, probably nicer to your ears, but not very loud at low volumes. So I'm going to compare all three.
Until I am moving back to the rhythm, back into the groove. When you're laying on your back and you're taking a nap, you got a ball on the track and you wake up losing. Until I am moving back to the rhythm, back into the groove. When you're laying on your back and you're taking a nap, you got a ball on the track and you wake up losing. Until I am moving back to the rhythm, back into the groove. When you're laying on your back and you're taking a nap, you got a ball on the track and you wake up losing.
Stormbox Lava against the original track. Takeaway is lacking in upper bass. It's a bit upper mids heavy, and the high end is problematic. Against the JBL Extreme 4, it's clearly tuned to take on the JBL Extreme 4. However, while they're quite similar in the bass region, Extreme 4 is a bit more balanced in the mids, and it has more of a boost at the high end. The U-Boom X fills in the upper bass that is missing on the Lava, but they're opposites in terms of the upper mids. The Lava is a bit forward in the upper mids, but the U-Boom X is a bit recessed in the mids, but much more balanced in the high end. Well, the Boom 2 is actually quite reasonably balanced. It just can't do the bass that the Lava can do. So 80 hertz and down, it lacks that mid and deeper bass that the Lava is doing, but overall is much more balanced.
I already said, it's as you go up the volume steps, it's noticeably less warmer. It's losing its one trick. It's problematic to me. I don't like this. It doesn't sound good to me. First of all, vocals are so recessed on this, not least because it's got a push in the mids, which makes it sound a bit nasty to my ears. And then it's got this really uneven high end. Don't know what happened there. It's got a tweeter, but it's I don't know how you get it that wrong. So it's got a big dip and there's a high. So it's a bit of a mess. It's just about if your track's got 50 hertz, it'll play it nicely. But is that enough? No. For me, it's hard edged. As a lot of the track is missing, the upper bass is gone, you know, and it sounds quite hard edged. So if it against the Extreme 4, has it succeeded? And once you get into real world volumes, that if you're going to buy a speaker like this, that I would assume you're listening at, although not everyone listens, because they say, I really like it, but I'm going to play it over 50%. Well, that's good, but then maybe, I don't know. Why not get a speaker that you can play over 50%? Yeah, so for me, the Extreme 4 does win against the Lava, but doesn't make this Extreme 4 a great price, is it? A great buy because of the extreme price. If it was the same price, then you'd say, okay, I get the Extreme 4. To me, it sounds more. I couldn't really listen long term to that. I can listen to that at these volumes. Searching for, you know, it said, did it say anything else there, Al? Or just that it comes off sounding, the Extreme 4 is smoother and less harsh. A little bit fuller because it's got some of the upper mids. I mean, they also reduce the upper bass, but not as much as in the Lava, and they've gone for that because they want to out bass it in the deeper bass if your track has that bass. The Boom 2. The Boom 2 I think comes off quite well in these comparisons. It sounds fuller, and to me it sounds more balanced. Look, I'm not saying it's a great sounding speaker as such, but I think it offers reasonable value. I would rather spend my life listening to that than the other one, but you're going to miss out on the 80 hertz and down. It doesn't have the bass that the others have all got. That's where you're going to miss out, but overall, to me, it's a more pleasant listening. It's going to depend on your ears and what you want. And that just leaves, I'm not going to say the elephant in the room, but the other speaker. It's a lot heavier, it's a lot bigger, but it's not a lot more in price. If it comes down to price and you want to do something to... So I used indoor plus mode. Well, why did you use that? You could have used this, that, and overtime, ground zero. Right, because it's about 48 million EQ. I think it's ridiculous. 48 million. Either go with Olive's EQs just as... but they're trying to mix it with their EQs and his EQs and theirs you can EQ over the top and you can't EQ over his and then the firmware that originally wasn't that good. To me, it's a mess. I can only say from my opinion. And other people love it, but not everyone. And it's going to depend on your ears, indoor, outdoor, what mode. I've chosen indoor plus mode, because it's kind of sort of more balanced compared to some of the others, but with some kick. It's got the bass that you're probably wanting if you're buying that one, which ain't balanced, but it's got some bass, and it's got a high-end push, so a bit more V-shaped. The problem with the speaker is that tuning. They all sound quite different. The problem with that tuning is it's got the opposite mids, pushed mids, recessed mids, which is going to rob it of some clarity, but make it sound warmer. With a quick A/B, you really notice it. You notice it less if you're just listening to it all the time across multi-genres, but it's much darker. The point is, in terms of bass, for the same money, you're going to go with that speaker every day of the week. But for me, you can turn on the signature mode and it's usable. Can you improve it? Yeah, of course, to your ears, and you get it exactly how you want in the area you're using it, all that. I'm not doing a million different EQs because everybody's idea. I used to do that, not doing it anymore. I do it how they want to tune it. However, I did pick one of Olive's because I think their default tuning on this is really bad, or other people say it's okay. the takeaways are, hopefully you've already got the takeaway. What else have I said? Just said overall it's probably more rewarding because I like a warm bass and it's there, but I couldn't live with it long term. In indoor plus mode, it's indoor is a bit more balanced. You've gone indoor because indoor plus, because I'm trying to show, compare it, get some balance, but with how much more bass you can get for your money. Yeah, saying it's got pushed upper mids and that's got recessed upper mids in that particular tuning. You can tune this flatter, but quite honestly, it doesn't make a huge. The problem with this is it's not great off axis. If I tuning this flatter. Robs it. It means pulling down those mids where some of its clarity is coming from because the high end is problematic. It's just got a couple of ways. Not much you can do with it. And by the way, when you mess around with their parametric, the graphic equalizer is it's very unpredictable. You push it a little bit of the way and it's doing exactly what you think it do, but then you push it a bit more and it doesn't push that bit, but it's doing loads of relative things that hard to predict for small incremental adjustments. However, this, for me, on axis was about as flat as I could get it.
Body moving, pick up everything, your body moving, pick up everything, your body moving. Now we're gonna get back to the rhythm, back into the groove. Can I relax until I am moving? Back to the rhythm, back into the groove. When you're laying on your back and you're taking a nap, you gotta follow the track and you wake up losing.
There's only so much you can do to fix the Stormbox Lava to try and get a more neutral EQ. I filled in some of the missing upper bass. I've reduced some of the upper mids and I've pushed the high end, but it's still problematic. We do have that dip that there's not much you can do about. Just to show you my EQ against the original track, and you can see it does give the balance, but doesn't really change the overall characteristics of the speaker.
Just note, off axis, you're going to lose a lot of clarity because it's already poor off axis, and because it's going to sound warmer and fuller, it's going to sound less clear off axis that way. We'll just do the maximum test and then see where we are, yeah?
Who goes the loudest? It's the Stormbox Lava, louder by 1.8 decibels over the JBL Extreme 4, the Boom 2 and the U-Boom X overall in loudness just behind. But of course the Stormbox Lava is getting that volume from the mids push. It's a very dominant mids push, big drop off in the high end, and it's the JBL Extreme 4 and the Stormbox Lava with the least bass at maximum volume, the least bass headroom for those two speakers. The Boom 2 is out-bassing both of those speakers, and it's the U-Boom X that has by far the most bass overall, but the U-Boom X sacrifices a lot of upper mids and then has a big high-end push. So you get the bass, but you get a bit of a weird sound in the mids and the highs. None of them really sound that great, but overall, maybe the Boom 2 has the most balance here. Certainly in terms of dynamics, it's holding on more. PLR, think of peak dynamics, It's just behind the U-Boom X. The Stormbox Lava is way behind the others. But then in loudness range, average dynamics, you can say, it's a bit of a flip-flop with the Boom 2 now just behind the Stormbox Lava, who has the best dynamics. In terms of average dynamics, you can say, and the U-Boom X lagging the other three. So if you want the bass, the U-Boom X is the winner. If you want just some volume, you're outside and it just has to carry a bit, maybe the Stormbox Lava, the Extreme 4, has the least bass here, living up to its name as an extremely priced speaker. But like most Bluetooth speakers, none of them are going to sound good at maximum volume.
So if it's all about volume, as in you measure how loud it goes the loudest, but it's doing that just right in the mids, in the upper mids. It's in a very narrow region, not hugely unlike the Extreme 4. And they both have the least bass. It's taken aim at the Extreme 4 and it's done well because it matches how little bass, matched how little headroom there is, except that that's more than twice the price of that. That's how extremely priced. It's always been the most extremely priced range, the JBL Extreme. Don't know why, but that seems to be where the least value is. JBL Extreme range. Having said that, the Authentics Rounded was a bit off. But anyway, yeah, so yes, it goes the loudest, but it's a one-note thing and it's horrible. You know, it's not great. I think the Boom 2 is the surprise package here. Depending on what you want, if you're outdoors, that may not work because it's more of a smoother, or like more balanced listen, and it's not that far off, is it, in terms of maximum volume? Of course, if you just want the bass, that delivers, but it's, you know, you pull down the mids and it's just that high end, and to me that sounds a bit nasty. I'll get slaughtered for that, and I think I've got to thick enough skin and let them come in. I just got to tell it like it is. And that's why I'm so. I saw like a case of, I mean, yeah, it's exclusive to Soundcore to float with the drivers up. I mean, how could you do that? But it don't matter, innit? I just grow this channel, and that's it's a problem. YouTube pushes the shills. Look at me. Nobody knows me. So yeah, Lava delivers for volume, but little else, and along with the Extreme 4, cannot produce even the bass. Yeah, I mean, it's out-bassing the Extreme 4 and the Lava. I mean, it's just crazy. While sounding more balanced. I'm not saying any of them sound great, but they can't match the bass of the U-Boom X. Of course, look at the difference in size, and there are other. Obviously EQs you can try. Some will help, some will, you know, and it'll sound quite different. I had to go with one EQ because I cannot sit for 43 years. What were we going to say? What was I going to say? I don't know. I forgot what was going to say, but that's a takeaway. I've got all the specs here, but I don't see the point of going through it. I don't know I told you about the prices, didn't I? In terms of the battery, yeah, I mean, I was saying 42 watts, kind of what you'd expect, but the U-Boom X obviously is much bigger, more powerful, 60 watts, 60 watt hours. 37.8 watt hours, obviously from a small speaker, and the Extreme 4 68 watt hours. So it's not even that, you know, it's not even that great. The battery. I don't know why they have to cut down the batteries. It doesn't really add that much to it, does it? I don't know. Anything of interest now? I'll put it up and you can see, but I don't. There's nothing that's going to be a deal breaker. At the end of the day, it's about the sound. I just tell you in terms of those drivers. I said 65mm woofers, 20mm tweeters. Compared to the Extreme 4, which has two 70mm woofers, slightly bigger. They've all got 20mm tweeters, by the way. And obviously bigger woofers, 100mm woofers on the U-Boom X. Soundcore Boom 2 has the trick up its sleeve. What's that, Al? Well, it's got a parametric equalizer. Woo! So that's quite handy if you want to take time to really dial in your EQ and all that. It's been another short video. Very few people will watch, but the ones who watch it will either really hate it or really like it. And that's how it goes. Mr. Marmite himself. I don't know, is that a worldwide thing, Marmite, or just in the UK? In fact, I haven't had it for years and years because I'm not a Marmite guy. It's a bit salty, isn't it? Should we just cut it short? Yeah, we'll cut it short. See you later.
What the f was that?
It comes from China.
My speaker's got deep bass, balanced mids, and a bright high.
Yes, mine sounds exactly the same.